Well, we're going down a rabbit hole, so you better buckle up. It's time to get rid of these big SLRs. Get yourself a rangefinder. What? Didn't he just say last week to dump the... What? My name is Rob Skeoch, and I've been shooting black and white film for over 50 years and worked over 45 years as a professional photographer, shooting for decades for Major League Baseball and the NFL, and I've been published everywhere from Sports Illustrated to National Geographic. Maybe some of the techniques that I use will be useful to you as you learn film photography. Just before we start, I wanted to mention that Ilford has featured my black and white portraits of rodeo cowboys on the company's blog. So if you go to ilfordphoto.com and you go into the blog section, January 2024, you'll see this feature on the rodeo cowboys. Maybe you'll find those interesting. Now there's a lot of advantages to a rangefinder, and none of them are worth switching for. So one of the advantages is the weight. So this is a big SLR with a big motor and a big 8514, weighs 2.1 kilograms. My MP with the little 28 weighs like 850 grams, so it's way lighter. But you know, you could buy a lighter SLR than the F3. You could not use a motor drive. You could use a slower lens, it would be lighter. Maybe a shorter lens would be more apples to apples. But basically, you can't really get away from the fact that the rangefinder is going to be lighter than your SLR. And look how small it is. It just fits. Like I can use it in just this little pouch. This is all you need to take with you till you needed more than you could fit in here. So it's nice and small. It's nice and light. There's no question about it. And it doesn't really look like a pro camera, obviously. This looks like a pro camera. This looks like I don't know, like you see so few of them out there in the wild that people don't even know what it looks like. Just looks like a hack camera. So there you go. You can take pictures in some situations because you don't look as much like a photographer. People just leave you alone. I don't know. He's got that little toy camera out there that we've never seen before. So that's an advantage of the rangefinder, is that it is lighter. It's a lot lighter, although you could definitely make an SLR lighter as well than the one that I have. So another thing about the rangefinder is just how quiet it is. Listen to that shutter. For a film camera, it's very quiet. When you compare it to an SLR with a motor drive, now that is the coolest sounding camera of all time. There's no question about it. Nothing sounds cooler than an F3 with a motor drive. But quiet doesn't come to mind. So the rangefinders are quieter. Now one of the great things about a rangefinder is how accurate the focus is, especially with a wide angle lens. So certainly you can focus very accurately with a rangefinder compared to an SLR. Now if you had an SLR that had autofocus, it would probably be just as accurate. But anyways, the rangefinder is very accurate for focus, especially with the wide angle lens in comparison to an SLR. And a lot of people preset their focus, use the hyperfocal distance, and they get great results with that. So you kind of pre-focus and then you're just out there shooting, and maybe you're putting it to your eye, but maybe you're just shooting. They have great results with that, get great photos. It's never really worked for me. I find with a print larger than 8x10, the hyperfocal distance just isn't really sharp enough. I like to just focus right on the subject. Hyperfocal distance does work better with a wide angle lens. The wider, the better. And the lower the aperture, the greater the depth of field, so that you've just got a larger hyperfocal zone. So some people have great results with it. I haven't, and I don't tend to use it. I just tend to focus. And if you compare that to an SLR, I think an F5 or an F6 would focus fast enough anyways. Now here's a weird advantage to rangefinders that if you haven't used one much, you just might not be familiar with. So the viewfinder window sees more than the taking lens sees. That's why you have little frame lines. So in reality, you can see things that are outside your picture taking frame, and you can anticipate when they enter into the frame. So I can see someone on the outside of my photo as they enter in, and it just helps me to anticipate them in the frame, where they're going to be in the frame, and it helps me to anticipate when to take the photo. So I've used that in China in this photo. I had the background set up and I just anticipated the person walking in, and when they got to a spot in the frame that I liked, that's when I took the picture. And then they continued to walk and walked out of the picture taking area, but again, I could still see them leaving through the edge of the viewfinder. So an SLR is more accurate with the framing and the cropping, but what if that's not important to your photos? What if you like the edginess, the rawness of having a little bit of looseness around the frame lines? And what if you want to crop later? I crop in the darkroom all the time. Here's a picture of a negative. This is Henri Carchon-Bresson's most famous photo behind the station. It's been cut. You know why? Because he cropped it. There's only one set of sprocket holes. So yes, people think, oh, I shouldn't be cropping my photos. I should be shooting full frame. All that is nice. You know what? Even Cartier-Bresson cropped his most famous photo because he shot it through like a fence gate kind of thing, and there was the fence and the gate on the left-hand side. So he cropped that out. It's very difficult to find a print of this image that's the full frame. You're basically always looking at the crop frame. So if Cartier-Bresson, he could crop, I'm happy to crop. Even Nick Gutt, and he took that famous photo from Vietnam of Kim Puck. In the original frame, there's another photographer walking down the side of the road on the right-hand side. But in the picture that we see the most, it's been cropped just to the subject. So you can't be afraid to crop. So maybe frame lines, the looseness of the rangefinder frame lines is not as important a thing as we like to make out. Now here's an area where rangefinders are just better than an SLR. If you use really dark filter, so this is an orange, but if you put on a red or a dark red or an infrared, it would be very difficult to focus because you're losing so much light with an SLR. But with a rangefinder, it's clear, it's bright through the rangefinder viewing window. So the filter is on the lens, but there's no filter darkening the viewing window. So that is one area. If you shoot with a dark filter, if you shoot infrared, there's an advantage to shooting, I think, with the rangefinder cameras because you can still see and focus through the viewfinder. It's tough with a dark filter to focus an SLR. Now, could you travel the world with just one lens? You hear statements like this all the time. If you could just have one lens, what would it be? I wouldn't even want to do it. If I was traveling the world, I'd want to take a bunch of lenses. And if I had to take one lens, I'd like a 20 to 200 f2. That's about the size of a 50. We're dreaming anyways. I'm never going to travel the world with just one lens. But let's say you wanted to take a 28, 35, 50. That's kind of like a rangefinder wheelhouse. And 28, 35, 50, maybe drop one of them. I mean, if you take a step closer or a step back, you could almost do the same photos with two lenses. But if you did want to use those three, I get it. Now, some photographers have narrowed it down like that. Salgado is the kind of photographer. He shot in the early years with a 28, 35, and a 60 macro. Not so much on a rangefinder. He did use them, but not so much on a rangefinder, but on the Leica R6. If you're not familiar with Salgado's work, you should take a look. He's my favorite of the modern black and white photographer. Although he's getting old now and he's not shooting all that much anymore, take a look at his early work before Genesis. Take a look at Uncertain Grace or Workers. These are fabulous books that really show great black and white photography. He's a great photographer. Now, we first met in the 80s when I was with Doctors Without Borders, and he was the main photographer that they used. So we met back then, and last time he was in Toronto, we got together as well. So he switched from using those three lenses years ago because he switched to the Pentax 645 film, and then he switched to digital and had a Canon camera customized so that the framing would look similar to the Pentax 645. So although people have fond memories of his work with the Leica and all that, really in reality, a lot of his best work was with a Pentax 645 or the Canon digital made to look the same. Anyways, check out his work. It's fantastic. One thing people say about rangefinder lenses is they're optics are a little cleaner. They don't have the restrictions because they don't have that mirror that has to clear the back element. So it's allowed a little more freedom in the design of lenses. And because of that, some of the sharpest, best lenses in the world are made for rangefinders. There's the APO 35 f2. There's the APO 50 f2. Wonderful, sharp, modern lenses. I wish I had them. They're fantastic. They're too expensive for me. Wonderful lenses. So they've got sharp lenses, that's for sure. They've got fast lenses. They've got the 21-1.4. They've got a 50.95. They've got a 75 1.25. They've got a 90 1.5. Amazingly sharp lenses, partly because of this freedom that they have in the design, but also partly because that's what sells, that's what they're into. These are amazing, wonderful lenses. I wish I had any of them. I don't. They are out of my price range. But they do make them. They make them fast and they make them sharp. Now, with a Leica, you hear all the time about the build quality. Oh, the build quality, the build quality, the build quality. Well, they do have great build quality, and a lot of cameras do, though. My Nikons are going to outlive me. Most of the SLRs that we use are going to outlive us. And if they're not, they're probably rusting out. We're probably not wearing them out. We're probably not wearing the gears out or wearing the shutters out because we're shooting so much film that we're just burning through cameras. No, they're probably more rusting out than wearing out. But there is build quality for sure. But a lot of brands have great build quality. So it's true with the rangefinders. It's also true with the Nikons and the Pentax and the Canons. Fantastic build quality right across the board. Great sharp lenses, great fast lenses, wonderful workmanship. These are true to Leica, but they're not unique to Leica. All the great camera brands have got these same qualities. So that's not really a true reason to switch. It's easy to see why you should switch to a rangefinder, but I have to ask myself, why do I use them? Like, I've been using them for years, but why is that? I'd have to dig deep a little bit and see what is it that I like about them for me. So people say there's prestige to shooting with them. I don't buy it. I don't see it. No one knows the brand outside of photographers. If you're out shooting on the street at a parade, you're not going to see another film camera. You're not going to see another Leica. And the people that you're photographing on the street, they don't even know what it is. I don't think there's any prestige. Maybe in your head there's prestige to it, but in reality, I don't think there's any prestige to it, because in the cities that I work in and where I shoot, no one knows the brand, to be honest, unless they're in the medical field and they're using their microscopes. I mean, out in the wild, if you're shooting with a Leica, that's a rare bird. Some people say it's a great user experience, and it is. It is with a 28, a 35, 50. It's a great experience to go out there and shoot. As long as you're okay with the inaccuracy of the framing, it's great. It's a great user experience. Oh, I know what it is. It's my appreciation of the quality of the gear. I love the finer things in life. That's hard to define and probably not true. I don't have a Rolex. I don't have a BMW. I don't even have a bamboo fly rod. So I don't think the pursuit and appreciation of the finest things in life has anything to do with why I shoot with a Leica. Now, why do I like them? Why have I continued to shoot for them? I really had to dig around and find that out. I think it's part of the continuum of photography. You can go out today with a camera similar and film similar to the great photographers and go out and try to take a great photo. You can go out there and shoot landscapes and try to take a great photo like Ansel Adams. You can try to shoot like Andre Cortez or Larry Burroughs or Eisenstadt. There's a continuum through these decades, and I think that's the part that I like the best about using a rangefinder. I love to look at those old photos of great photographers with their old gear, you know, Andre Cortez or Eisenstadt or Jim Marshall. He had some great beat up old M4s. I love to see those cameras and those photographers with them. I just appreciate it. It's part of this continuum through the decades is one of the reasons that I shoot with it. There's some kind of a connection with, I don't know, Robert Capa. Now, Robert Capa used contacts, I know that, but it was a rangefinder nonetheless. There's this continuum, and I think it's one of the things that I love about picking up a camera that hasn't really changed in 40 or 50 or more years. And I've given you every reason why I believe I use a rangefinder, and I've given you a lot of excuses or reasons why you should use a rangefinder, and maybe you should, or maybe you should use an SLR. Will they help you get better pictures? No, I never said that. If you want better pictures, all you have to do is buy a roll of film, go out shooting, analyze the results, buy another roll, go out shooting, analyze the results, wash and repeat. And it doesn't hurt if you stand in front of more exciting things.